All right, all right. Welcome back to Public Comment, where we're going to have some definitely discourse where we're talking about municipal politics of the city of Detroit. I'm your host, Khary Frazier, here featuring the star of the Municipal overview and so much other things. But right now, he's starring on freezing and being cold in the deep. Mr. Malachi Barrett, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So, it was a very long council meeting, what I'll consider, but actually, you were saying that like a lot of the council meetings go from what is it, 10 o'clock all the way to 2 o'clock. It's like a Iron Man match that was yesterday for yesterday's council meeting, January 16th, 2024. We're going to break down some of what happened in that meeting where we're talking about the amusement tax, some murals from some artists from outside the city that came into the city. And it seems like the city is being left with this bill. We're also going to talk a little bit about redistricting and the 6 maps that do exist. There was a 6 map added to the redistricting for the city of Detroit and so much more. Malachi, let's break it down a little bit.
Let's do it. All right. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it was a long meeting yesterday, but they're normally, a good probably 4 or 5 hours. And these first meetings of the year are pretty busy too, because there's a lot of contracts that are kind of lingering from the end of the previous year, and we're gearing up for the budget season. So yeah, it's going to be a lot. We follow all this action on bridgedetroit.com. My weekly city council notebook kind of recaps what happens at the formal sessions on Tuesday. City council also meets in committees throughout the week too. So there's always a lot going on. Some of the big things that were talked about yesterday, I want to call attention to this kind of controversy over mural contracts. So there were murals commissioned by a nonprofit group out of New York. That was actually called the Street Art Mankind Corporation. And this was done in partnership with the city. They had been talking for about a year, according to city officials, about putting some murals around privately owned buildings in the downtown to kind of beautify the area in advance of the NFL draft. So this was, let's put some nice art up on the walls when we have all these thousands of people that are going to come down to downtown Detroit.
All right, and let me get this straight. As we're showing definitely your screen and everything, people are seeing into the mind of the journalist Malachi, and more so, you can check this out every week. You can check this out every week. The notebook where Malachi breaks down what happened in city council meetings every Tuesday on Wednesday mornings. So you can check this out and read for yourself what's happening. But kind of back to this mural project. So if I get this correct, a New York firm came to the city of Detroit like, yo, the NFL draft is coming and we need to beautify the city. We have some artists, and a lot of contention of this is a lot of the artists for these murals, if I'm correct, none of the muralists were from the city of Detroit. This is an outside entity that commissioned this, a nonprofit that's not also not from the city of Detroit. So it's not a Michigan or Detroit-based arts organization. There are no muralists from the city of Detroit, and it seemed to have the council a little up in arms over how this would happen. And I believe that what's the cost of all of this?
So the big controversy with this, and I guess it's not really clear to me whether Street Art Mankind Corp, we'll call them Street Art Mankind, came to the city first, or if the city was looking for kind of a group like this to do some murals. I mean, the city does a lot of mural projects. I believe they do things across the country, across the world. They have a lot of international artists. We were told yesterday at the city council meeting that none of the artists are from Detroit. They're not even from the United States. They're all from other countries. And basically what this organization does is kind of uplift.
Wait. Yeah. They're not even from the United States of America?
That's what we were told, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so so basically this is looking to take money from city of Detroit taxpayers to pay artists not from America. So this is not Detroit. This ain't Metro Detroit. This ain't Michigan. This ain't even the USA.
Right.
Wow, that's interesting.
I want to highlight too, Outlier Media, if you can see my screen, did a really great story about this in October of last year, where they kind of broke down some of the tension between local artists like Sidney James, very prominent mural artist here, Folks who just weren't even really given a chance to participate in this project, which runs pretty counter to, some of the things that the arts department of the city has been doing to commission murals across the city. So this was kind of a separate project from like the City Walls project, which has put up a lot of interesting art by mostly local, at least Michigan
Yeah.
based in a lot of cases,
I mean,
Detroit based in some.
you speak about Sydney right now. She has her girl from Detroit exhibit in New York, and the blackout walls that she's been doing for years have been placing different murals that express a lot of that cultural blackness. Like it's some over on Dexter right now that really are representative of the culture of the city. Definitely shout out to Sydney on so many levels, especially the bamboo earrings that my man Mike Will just designed that is like an ode to Smiley. But I ain't friendly for the people that know Detroit hip hop. But my bad. I'm just going into like more Detroit culture. There you go.
So basically, I mean, there was already this frustration about who got the opportunity to do this work, and that story came out in October. And as soon as it did, city council members were reaching out to the planning department and vice versa, saying, "Hey, what the heck is going on here? Why did we not get anybody involved in this?" The big controversy, or kind of the new turn of the screw anyway, is that the city is being billed for this now, and there was no approval ever given from the planning department and also from city council. City council is being asked to pay for these things that they never had a chance to weigh in on, which could run afoul of the city charter. Council President Pro Tem James Tate said that this work was done in violation of the charter, which gives the city council the sole authority to approve contracts. So this work was kind of done without permission, and now they're turning around and billing the city for it. The city council refused to pay. They unanimously voted to reject the contract yesterday. It's a $215,000 bill. It was, included in the bill are flights for the artists who, again, are coming from across the world, Uber rides around town, hotel rooms while they were staying here, some of the compensation for the artists, and equipment. And, if you get your calculators at home, $215,000 divided by 6 is already, not a ton. You split up all that other stuff. One of the other kind of issues that Outlier raised in its reporting was how much were the artists even getting paid in the first place?
I definitely think, for the size of some of these murals are massive, like football fields.
They span the side of a
imagine.
parking deck or a 5-story building. I mean, they're pretty big. You probably noticed them around downtown. They were put in September, October of last year. So city council is really pushing for some accountability on this issue from the planning director, who serves at the pleasure of the mayor, Antoine Bryant. Really could just apologize up and down for letting this happen.
Yeah, in your story, Antoine's perspective, like from how I read it, was like kind of like a big my bad. I should have not have. So if I get this correct, the muralists began with the thumbs up from Antoine, which for people that understand like the role of city council, any city monies that's approved and paid to anyone goes through city council. City council is the holds the purse strings of the city of Detroit. The executive body, on the other hand, makes a decision of usually like how funds will be spent, but it must be approved as far as budgeted from the city of council. And also creating the laws and the ordinances, similar to any legislative branch of government, going all the way back, taking you back to middle school, social studies per se. So with this, Antoine basically said, hey, you can start. And then when he's like, okay, what? I misstepped.
Well, he's even saying that he didn't give them permission, that they started on their own. The city was in conversations with this group that they were going to come and do some murals for us ahead of the draft. And groups like the Downtown Economic Growth Corporation and Visit Detroit, some of these other kind of like organizations that were involved in bringing the draft down here, were, on board with this. But the work kind of started without even his permission, is what he was telling the council yesterday.
Okay, so if it started without his permission, because completely I read, but he was saying stop, but they went on and continued, right? Because he was the one that said stop, and they still move forward with it.
Yeah, once they had started, he went to them apparently, and murals, can take between a week or 2 weeks or longer, depending on how long or how intensive they are and how complicated they are, right? This one that we have included in our story, a photo that was provided by the city, shows one of the parking garages over by LCA. I think it's on 2nd Ave or maybe Cass. I'm not quite sure. I saw that being put together over the course of at least a week. It might have even been, 2 or 3 weeks. But yeah, he came to them and said, "Hey, knock it off. You you haven't been approved to start doing this work." And he said they just did it anyway, which is very strange. Another thing I want to raise too is Council President Sheffield brought up how, in the past, the law department has said that general fund dollars can't be used for private interests, basically. And that has stood in the way of the city spending general fund dollars on home repair programs or, down payment assistance programs or.
Wait, you forgot the big thing. Our big thing of last year's year end. People getting paid back for their overassessed taxes.
Overassessment too, yeah.
That right there, that one-on-one you had with Conrad Mallett specifically speaking to that. And this would be looked at as not only public, but the argument is these buildings are privately owned structures, A. B, the argument is that because the NFL draft is here, it beautifies the city, so it's a public good for the beautification. And now the argument comes back to city council saying, like, okay, wouldn't heightened public good be paying back the people that were overassessed in taxes? Or really, they didn't speak to that as much as they spoke to like the drainage backups and a lot of the other quality of life challenges that do exist, kind of connected to some of the functionality of things associated with the city's deliverables to citizens.
Correct? Yeah, I think the beautification is the big part. Like, if you can use general fund dollars to beautify the downtown because it makes the area look more attractive, I guess, for people that are coming down for the draft, why can't you use that money to repair homes so that neighborhoods are beautified, so that maybe as people venture out into the city, I think that there's like a argument that could be made there that, it's a public good to have Detroit be a prosperous and, well-functioning place for people to actually live in their homes. And I think that's what she was raising, that this is a conversation that the council would have had if they had the chance to vote on this contract before the work was done. If the process would have been followed correctly, there would have been an opportunity to decide whether this was even a good use of private or public dollars. Because again, these are being put on privately owned downtown buildings. Councilwoman Calloway was like, why are we paying for these private owners to have murals put up? I mean, this is something that private owners pay for all the time on their own. Why are we using public dollars to put art on your building, right?
So getting there and staying on this pace, let's stay with Calloway. Something Calloway introduced is another story that you have. The amusement tax, or as we say, the event ticket tax.
They're calling it amusement tax. They actually told me yesterday, she and her staff told me yesterday to be kind of careful about the language they're using, because right now this is like a very, we don't have a lot of specifics on what this will be. So they're calling it an amusement tax.
Okay.
Does that mean it's going to be a tax on tickets? Does it
so
mean
they don't necessarily know how it'll function? Because this also in your article, hopefully you scroll to that, you went into this isn't like the first time this been introduced. It's been introduced multiple times before, of how to look at some of the larger events that happen in the city of Detroit being taxed to come back to the residents, which is also very unique because a lot of the tax abatements are connected to building these structures that are supposed to come back and help residents as well. So it's like it's a two-tier system. But then I guess you have the Downtown Development Authority, which captures a lot of that money downtown, connected to these structures and everything. So like it's multiple things playing out. And this is something introduced by Calloway. Please break down where we stand with this.
Yeah, let's just be kind of clear about what actually happened. I mean, they passed a resolution asking the legislature to pass a bill that would then let Detroit create an amusement tax. So we're pretty far away from actually having something, take effect. Basically, a resolution is kind of like a letter that says, hey, lawmakers, we would really like you to do this. So whether the legislature picks that up this year in a time where a lot of other things are happening, redistricting and an election and all of that, and even the governor has said she's not really interested in seeing any kind of tax reforms. Does that apply to this? Probably not. I think she was talking more about like general kind of income taxes. And
that's interesting because the governor also supports the land value tax, but continue.
Right. Well, yeah. And so what's the status of that large kind of tax proposal that Detroit is backing? Can they get two done in a year, let alone one? But Whitfield-Calloway says she's working with Senator Sylvia Santana and Senator Mallory McMorrow to work this out, to basically introduce a bill sometime this year. And Santana had introduced bills in 2017 and 2019 that would have created a 10% admission fee on events with more than 500 people, which is not just, Taylor Swift and big.
No, I mean,
that's it applies to zoos.
Sometimes
it applies
Detroit is different, does events with more than 500 people.
Yeah. I mean, it applies to a lot more: sporting events, festivals, zoos, theaters, museums. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't have applied to schools, including college athletics. So that wouldn't, Wayne State Games and stuff wouldn't have been applied to that. But that was what she had tried to do in the past. And it's not clear yet whether, that's the model moving forward, if there's other things that could be done. I mean, it's still really early. Councilmember Coleman Young also introduced a bill when he was a state senator in 2018 that would have charged $3 per person for sporting events or concerts with a seating capacity of 5,000 or more. So that's kind of the bigger events that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then what's interesting too is that the council president had introduced or kind of pushed for creating a 2% surcharge on tickets, specifically at like Illich-owned arenas. So I guess Comerica Park and LCA, and it's not clear whether that would have applied to like the Fox Theater or some of the other
Olympia entertainment entities.
Right.
So in that's also something. And as we get to a closer, let's round out with the last thing. Getting closer to, we want to stick to this being like a 20-minute show every week that y'all could catch.
I could go on forever. Go read the notebook. Go to bridgedetroit.com and sign up for our free newsletter that comes out on weekends, because there's a lot of good information and some stuff that we haven't even talked about. But let's end with redistricting, right? That's we're kind of getting to the end of this process before it really even started for a lot of people. There's a lot of folks that still don't really understand that this is happening. But the City Council, the Planning Commission has put out 6 different map options now for new City Council districts that will take effect. You're looking at the 6th option. This is the most recent one that the Planning Department put out. You can see over here, this is kind of what the population changes would look like for, the number of people in each of these districts. And this is the line where it's going to be changing. We also built some maps that you can go look at. You can kind of flip through and see what the difference is. City Council likes this map the best because it stays closest to the way the districts currently are. And I should also just say, as kind of like set up, this is a required process under the city charter. Every time census data comes out every 10 years, they have to redraw the districts based on population to make sure that they're equally divided and all of that.
And furthermore than just that, I mean, when we move to a district, council by district, like a districting government, similar to a lot of other places with like parishes and things like that, what ends up happening is, even throughout the state, like you say, redistricting is happening. So the redistricting will happen every 10 years based on census data, like you said, just so that things are level, because right now things are getting very much on level, especially in my district. I'm in District 2. It's a lot of people in District 2. And then 3 and 4, I believe, have dipped. So what could possibly end up happening is, like, you could have certain districts with like 200,000 people and then another district with like 50,000 people, and that just is not representative of a collective voice. So that could be unfair to both sides depending upon what is happening and who's listening and the functionality of it. So this is just the process. One of the things that a lot of residents, especially like here in Hope Village, is saying, because now it looks like we're going to go to District 5, which puts our district in the mix of having all the downtown entities. So like that will put us with Henry Ford Hospital and Little Caesars Arena and the Fox Theater and everything else happening downtown. And then you think about a community like ours, and some residents are like, will we get those same considerations, knowing now that we're competing against, like, downtown? And I mean, who's to say what? This is a process that would not take place until the local elections, which that's why we getting on the pulse now, so that we can definitely have some people aware, as local elections happen in 2025, next year. Always after the presidential year, our Detroit local elections happen.
Nothing changes till then. Just so people are, people have been kind of worried about, like, your district is not going to change. Your council representative is not going to change until the next election, which isn't until next year.
Yep. And I just wanted to deliver that. Nothing's going to change till then, but they do need an amount of time to move to that district if they choose to move and live in or relocate or whatever may happen. happen because things are shifting. So with that, as we get to a close, I want you to give another line on how they get in contact with you. This was real fun. We're going to keep this whole thing going. So much more to say about redistricting too. But for the most part, it's coming. It will happen. Look at those maps and I guess get familiar for 2025. And also, if you're thinking about running for city council, you need to be very well aware of what's happening with the districts and where you live, because that could play out where you're thinking, oh, I'm going to run in a lame seat, but nah, you're going to be in the mix.
So. Yeah, you gotta live in the district too. So that's part of why they're trying to get this done early, to give people plenty of time to move into the places that they'll want to represent. But this is going to happen fast. So public hearing is scheduled for 10 a.m. on January 23rd. That's next Tuesday, where people can weigh in, call in. And then a final vote is expected on the 30th, the following Tuesday, the last meeting of this month. And there's also an online form that we have linked in our thing here where people can submit comments. But what's interesting is that really at this point, people are just kind of picking between the different map options. There's not really an opportunity to say, could you move the boundary a couple streets over here, or make sure that I'm over here. It's the kind of tinkering with the actual lines is kind of over. Now it's about picking which of these options that has been put together is the best one. So people kind of have a limited ability to affect this. But I think what you've been talking about does this affect my ability to get resources in the district? Does this kind of change my representation in a better or worse way? Like, those are all the things that are really important. I think council has really put a priority on keeping things about as same as they are now, so that community development organizations and block clubs that have been working in partnership with the city and each other aren't kind of disrupted by all of a sudden being in a different district. How much does that affect things? I'm also kind of curious about. I mean, if you're moved into a new district, does that mean that you can't really leverage any of the relationships that you built with your previous council member? I mean, there's no rule really that somebody in a different district can kind of advocate for you, even though the council members themselves kind of make sure that the territory is divided as it should be. It's, they take that representation of their area pretty seriously. But the challenging thing, as you mentioned, is that the East Side districts have lost a lot of population over the last 10 years. So those districts have to get bigger or expand more westward to gather more people, so that they have an equal number of folks in that district compared to the other ones. And that's made some of the kind of shifting around with those districts more on the west side tough.
And let me say this, and we in overtime, but not so long, but I do want to give this point too. Being in the city that we are, where sometimes things feel as though they're always being taken away. And no one's really fighting or advocating for the people. This is a sentiment of many people. For any of these changes always seem as though we're going to get taken advantage of, because a lot that has come has not necessarily heightened the quality of life throughout for many Detroiters. And this may be more of an existential, philosophical, metaphysical question of the role that government plays in heightening the quality of life of others, or more so is the role on us as citizens to encourage the government to do that. That's a deeper philosophical question. With that being said, any of these changes definitely immediately trigger a lot of emotions of what's going to happen. So a lot going into things, like people are thinking that, services will change. It will have impacts on all of the efforts that are moving forward. I would argue and plead with many of the CDCs and organizers and people in neighborhoods and residents, like our tenacity towards our love for this city has to supersede whoever is in office, because clearly our allegiance has to be to our own communities and our own neighborhoods. This sounds very altruistic, but we have to move in that mythology, because if not, the hero complex of someone else advocating for us better than we can advocate for ourselves, I just don't think it's true. With that being said, now may be one of those times to draw better allegiances, because there will be, I mean, even just putting myself reasonably in that position, it would be very difficult to transition districts, and then you find me cutting ribbons and advocating and at the council table always advocating for a district that I'm no longer in. When I have a new district, if I'm one of those residents, I'm going to say, yo, I want the same advocacy for me. So hence, encourage what that'll be. You'll know who your new council member is currently. That does not necessarily mean they'll be in office next time, but even more than a reason now to find someone in your group to possibly look at running for one of those seats themselves.
Well said.
Yeah. So with that, yo, Malachi,
Bridge
tell them how to get in contact with you.
BridgeDetroit.com. We got free news that you can use, good information every day coming out. We have newsletters you can sign up for. If you don't want to get on your computer every day, get on your phone every day and type in BridgeDetroit.com, I totally get that. We'll send it to you. We'll send it to your inbox if you sign up. You just, go to BridgeDetroit.com, put in your email address in our subscribe link, and we'll get you hooked up. Or follow us on social media. Just look up Bridge Detroit on the accounts. But that's the best way to get a hold of us. Also, my contact information is out there. I don't know if you're going to put it up, but mbarrett at bridgedetroit.com is my Gmail account. So reach out anytime and let me know what's going on.
I didn't this time in the scroll. Next week it's gonna be in the scroll, and Lord knows I can only imagine with the redistricting. We come in right hot in with more redistricting. We may actually even bring in a guest next week. I don't know.
We're gonna need some state people to come talk about that, because that's gonna be really crazy. I mean, the House Speaker's district, Joe Tate, his district is getting redrawn. So what does that mean for all? I mean, it's gonna be big.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So with that, peace.